Welcome to this video on the 10 principles of journalism. We have already talked about the evolution of print media. Now let's see what is journalism. Journalism is the practice of gathering and reporting news and information. It is an important part of a healthy democracy as it helps to keep the public informed about what is happening in the world. However, before you practice journalism, you should know about its guiding principles. So there are 10 principles of journalism which are guidelines that journalists follow to ensure that their work is accurate, fair, and ethical. These principles are verification, objectivity, originality, completeness, transparency, fairness, restraint, humanity, accountability, and empowerment. As you can see, some of these are used to gathering sources, some of these are for telling a story, and the rest are for making an impact through your storytelling. The first two principles of journalism are verification and objectivity. Verification means that journalists must make sure that the information they report is accurate. This means checking their facts with multiple sources and avoiding gossip and rumors. Journalists should be skeptical of information that is not verifiable and avoid using anonymous sources unless it is absolutely necessary. Objectivity means that journalists should report the news without bias or prejudice. This means presenting all sides of a story and giving readers the information they need to form their own opinions. For example, journalists should avoid expressing their own opinions or biases in their reporting. Journalists should use neutral language and avoid inflammatory or loaded language. They should talk to all types of sources to be more objective. The next four principles of journalism are originality, completeness, transparency, and fairness. These need to be kept in mind while writing a story. Originality means that journalists should create their own work and not plagiarize the works of others. It is an intellectual theft and punishable. Journalists should properly attribute any information that they borrow from other sources. Journalists should avoid using copyrighted material without permission, including the images. Completeness means that journalists should report the whole story, not just parts of it. For example, if a journalist is writing a story about a new law that has been passed, they should not just report on the main provisions of the law. They should also explain the background to the law, why it was passed, and what will be the potential impacts of the law. The journalist should also interview people from all sides of the issue, including supporters and opponents of the law. This will help them to provide a complete picture of the story and allow readers to make up their own minds about the law. Journalists should provide context for the story and explain the significance of the events that they are reporting. They should also avoid oversimplifying the story or leaving out important information. Next, we have transparency, which means that the journalist should be open about their sources and methods, including the process of story gathering and any personal connections that they may have to the story. For example, a journalist who is investigating a government agency should disclose that they used to work for that agency. Transparency is important in journalism because it helps to build trust with the audience and to ensure that the reporting is accurate and impartial. It also helps to promote accountability in the society. Fairness means that journalists should treat all sources equally and avoid giving preferential treatment to any one side. This includes giving all sides of a story an equal opportunity to respond to accusations or criticisms, and avoid using stereotypes or generalizations in their reporting. The final four principles of journalism are restraint, humanity, accountability, and empowerment. Restraint means that journalists should be mindful of the potential harm that their reporting can cause. This means avoiding sensationalism and reporting on sensitive topics in a respectful way. For example, A journalist who is reporting on the death of a child should avoid using graphic photos or language in their reporting. A journalist who is writing a story about a sexual assault victim should avoid using the victim's name or identification information. A journalist who is investigating a crime should avoid speculating about the motives of the suspect or the guilt of the suspect. They should not be in a rush to break a story without proper verification of facts. Restraint is important in journalism because it helps to minimize the harm that reporting can cause to individuals and society. It also helps to maintain public's trust in the media. Another principle is humanity, which means that journalists should treat their subjects with compassion and dignity, regardless of their social status, background, or the circumstances of the story. A journalist who is interviewing a victim of crime should be sensitive to the victim's needs and avoid asking questions that could be re-traumatizing. A journalist who is writing a story about a person with a disability should focus on the person's strengths and accomplishments rather than their disability. A journalist who is investigating a social issue should avoid using language that could be seen as stigmatizing or marginalizing the people involved. Humanity is a very important principle in journalism because it helps to ensure that the public is presented with an accurate and respectful picture of the world. Accountability is another principle in journalism. That means that journalists should be held accountable for their work and correct any mistakes that they make. This also includes holding powerful people and governments accountable for their actions. Accountability is important in journalism because it helps to ensure that the public is presented with accurate and reliable information. It also helps to promote trust between journalists and the public. The last principle that we are going to discuss is empowerment, which means that the journalists should use their platform to give voice to the voiceless. This means reporting on the issues that matter to marginalized communities and holding powerful people and institutions accountable. For example, journalists should report on the issues that matter to marginalized communities, such as poverty, racism, sexism, and discrimination. Empowerment is important in journalism because it helps to promote social justice and equality. It also helps to ensure that all voices are heard in the public sphere. These 10 principles of journalism are essential for ensuring that journalists produce high quality and ethical work.